This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Gotten such good feedback about us revisiting the good old days, or well, maybe the not so good old days. We just did
the old days. It's just old.
There you go. Just old days. We did In Your House, the very first one on June 5th. We were back at you talking about Kevin Nash on July 10th. And today we're talking In Your House number 2 from 1995. I don't know why, man, but I feel like 1995 is like a new gold mine for us. I feel like we've spent a lot of time on this show talking about the golden era, you know, Hogan, Savage, Demolition, that sort of timeline. And then fast forward to the Attitude Era. I feel like we've spent a bunch of time there, but I don't think that we've really spent a lot of time on the transition years. And I guess 95, to use like a sports franchise term, was a bit of a rebuilding year. Fair to say?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, did you say transitional years? It's like a transitional champion. This will be the transitional year.
Well, we're coming off the horrific King of the Ring 1995 show, which we talked about a little bit on our Kevin Nash episode. Mabel has gone over, Diesel and Bam Bam Bigelow are going to main event against Sid and Tatanka. And we're moving on to In Your House 2 after King of the Ring 95. And Meltzer would write in the Observer, all that we know right now for In Your House 2 on July 23rd in Nashville is that it will have Diesel and Sid and what was advertised on television as a lumberjack match. Although there have been rumors that it may be changed to a cage match for the title on top. We'll also have Jeff Jarrett defending and probably losing the Intercontinental title to Shawn Michaels and what will be the show stealer, Bret Hart versus Hakushi, Bam Bam Bigelow versus King Kong Bundy, coming as the third show in a 9-day period following the Shamrock Severin match in the UFC, which is going down on July 14th, and the Hogan Vader cage match on July 16th. The WWF may find itself in a very rare position coming in third in a 3-way race. This is something you and I haven't talked a lot about, but in the pay-per-view era, which there we go, doesn't even seem like it should be a thing. But back then your major promotions would have pay-per-views and obviously WCW is one of those and the WWF is one of those, but so is this new outfit, the UFC. And this is sort of pre-Ultimate Fighter. This is back before the UFC was more mainstream. It was still underground in the beginning stages, if you will. How much of the planning went into how do we A, avoid that same day, B, avoid the same weekend? And was there a strategy to let's get in front of them or let's be at the end of them? Like, did you guys do like A and B testing on from a financial standpoint, with the idea being that every American household doesn't have just endless amounts of disposable cash? Some folks are going to have to pick, honey, we can afford to get this one or this one and that one, but not the other one. Did that type of conversation happen when it came to competing for household dollars with all this competition in the pay-per-view landscape?
Well, I don't think that anybody was looking at UFC as competition, and it was a completely different product and something that appealed to a different audience as well. Was it crossover? Of course there was. But I think that if anything, the other folks that were doing pay-per-view were probably looking at us and wondering what we were going to do and when. However, in the same breath, we had made the commitment to go monthly. And in making the commitment to go monthly, you've got to realize at that point that you are out there and there's going to be competition from anybody and everybody. So you either have to decide to be out there or not be out there. We had made the decision, let's go for it and put our head down and move forward.
What was the thinking in trying to compete? I mean, what must it have been like for Vince, I guess is what I'm driving to, that now he finds himself competing with his own creation of sorts. I mean, I know that Hulk Hogan was a thing before he came to Vince, but with Vince's help, Hulk Hogan became a household name. And it sort of becomes a chicken and the egg conversation, I guess, because people argue, who helped make who. Well, clearly both helped each other. But now when Vince is sort of struggling to find his next big thing and get a guy over like he has before with Hulk Hogan, he also finds himself competing with Hulk Hogan. And we say on the show all the time that you guys used to ask when it came to marketing someone like Brett or perhaps even Diesel, what would we do for Hogan? And now while you're trying to sort of recreate the magic from Hogan, damn it, he's a competitor for you too. That's gotta be a catch-22 type situation.
It is. And more than anything, I think that it probably hurt Vince that he was even in that position of having to deal with Hulk on this side of the fence. So I think you take care of your own business. You just look at your own shop and go from there. And probably one of the biggest deterrents to what we did over the years was acknowledging Turner and trying to, discredit them, if you will, and talk about them, because we just gave them more and more publicity. By acknowledging them and moving on, it gives them more publicity. And when we just said, you know what, they're going to be there, screw it, take care of your own business and focus on what it is that you do best and not what everybody else does. Because in history, you go down and you look at every single one of those promoters that when Vince made his national expansion, Vince went to all of them, tried to buy them out or bring them in. They all said, you know what? No, man, I'm going to put you out of business. They started focusing on Vince and what Vince was doing, and they forgot about what they had at home, and they stopped taking care of it. And that's the reason that the local promoters went out of business, and the reason that they weren't able to continue to do business for all those years, because they were, okay, you're going to come into Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Well, then by God, we're going to go into New York City. And that's what they did. Jim Crockett sitting there in Charlotte wasn't happy being the king of Charlotte and being the king of the East Coast, in the southern end. Wanted to go into, oh, by God, I'll come into New York City. So that was the downfall of Jim Crockett Promotions. It was the downfall of Bill Watts. Jerry Jarrett, for as much as he lacks a lot in acumen, at least just stayed in Tennessee and didn't venture out.
And made money.
Well, for himself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Nobody else did, but he did. Meltzer would also continue the talk of Dr. Death. He says negotiations with Steve Williams are still alive, but he's neither agreed to come in or turned anything down. But if he came in, he would surely get a push. Who was pushing for Dr. Death here in 95? It couldn't have been JR at this point, right?
If JR was breathing, he was pushing for Dr. Death.
I'm saying he was playing hokey pokey with the company at this point.
Yeah. Oh. But still, if he's breathing, he's pushing for Dr. Death.
Okay. Let's keep it moving. I do want to ask, we talked about it at the top of the show. Do you think Hulk Hogan Vader as a main event was of any concern to Vince? I mean, that feels like sort of his old formula. Hulk Hogan against a big nasty heel. Was that considered stiff competition, do you think, this month?
At this point, the shit they were doing really wasn't. And it was just another, rehash. It was the same formula that we had followed for years, Hogan against the big monster. That was Terry's story, and that's how Hulk got over. So go back to the formula that works.
Let's talk about, I know this sounds weird, but you've often said that sometimes you would watch these WCW pay-per-views with like Pat Patterson or Howard Finkel, Did Vince ever watch a WCW pay-per-view with you guys? Would he watch it at home, or did he not watch the other stuff at all?
From time to time, he would watch a pay-per-view, yeah, or one of their specials, TBS specials, something like that. But it wasn't a regular deal, no.
A couple weeks after they were let go, Meltzer would write in the newsletter that after those key executives, quote unquote, and the head of public relations and the head of marketing, meaning Steve and Rex, were let go, a lot of wrestlers who are working, quote unquote, on bottom are worried about their jobs. Apparently there'd been discussion of doing this even before WrestleMania, but it wasn't until last week when it happened. Do you think Vince was sort of reluctant to make these cuts, and it wasn't until he knew that King of the Ring was not the boom that he hoped? Maybe he thought originally after WrestleMania, okay, that didn't draw the buy rate, but maybe we can pull the nose up on this thing by June. And then when it doesn't happen there, it's just time to get to business.
Yeah, I think that, look, all the time you're going to run into situations where business isn't what you want it to be. And yes, we need to turn things up and we need to change things around a little bit. That's business, and you just have to reevaluate and constantly reevaluate and reinvent as you move along.
Well, it's funny because, you've got sort of mixed messaging. King of the Ring does a 0.65 buy rate, which Meltzer would say would make it by a sizable margin the lowest rated WWF pay-per-view in history. That would indicate what Vince is calling 150,000 buys for a $1.6 million company gross. Meltzer would say, if 1 year ago you told me the UFC would be beating a WWF pay-per-view, he would have doubted it. And the gist is, at the same time, while pay-per-view is down, we're doing some decent numbers live. The live gate for the show at the Spectrum was impressive. There's 16,590 folks in the building. 14,142 of those were paying. The gate is $311,680. That's the second largest gate of the year, only behind WrestleMania. How do you reconcile this, where fans will turn out in droves for you to see you in certain markets, but the pay-per-view is just circling the drain? Is it just you had a poor lineup, you did a poor job promoting? What's the lesson Vince learns in a moment like that?
Well, obviously you didn't have an attraction that people wanted to see. And it was also new to do the monthly pay-per-views. So people had not got into the habit yet of monthly pay-per-view and, I need to budget my money here and I need to do this. We weren't there yet. So I think it's just a combination of a lot of things. And that, brand new all-night gas station opened up down the street.
Oh God, I love when you do that. Oh. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.